right, so it's top of the hour. We're going to begin. I was just saying, it feels like Christmas morning in some ways. I get to like bring one of the great gifts in my life and get to share her with you, Marta Maria. She is one of my dearest, beloved friends. We've both been on this wild path of what does it mean to be alive in these times and fully showing up for the moment. And she is one of the most committed teachers I know. She's someone who's worked in, you've all read her bio, so I'm not going to like reread her bio for you. You know, what I wanted to tell you is why I wanted to bring her to you at this particular time in relationship to this Eros and Power class. And I think so much of story, you know, and a lot of you understand that so much of it is in our body, some of it's in our energy field, some of it is caught in our language. And then there's this whole other element of what do we have capacity to get access to in that unseen realms, and when we're dealing with our consciousness work. And I love, like, Marta's one of those people that I go to when I'm like, okay, I can't jump shark, like I can't get out of this thought form, or I really need clarity, or I really want to clear something so I can see the real truth of what's happening and get to the access my own core life force power. And so those are sometimes the moments, you know, Marta's a dear friend, but I've also definitely worked with her many times on many different levels and gotten to be in ceremony with her. And she is just this channel of goodness and of love and clarity and fierce teaching. And so it is such an honor to get to share her with you. I'm not going to get to be with you throughout the whole class just because of the nature of this, what's happening in my world today. But I'll you know, I'm here in the background, and I'm going to fully hand over the reins to Marta Maria and just enjoy your time with her. It will be a gift. So I just invite you to be as Christmas possible.
Very sweet, very sweet. It's always interesting to hear how your friends think of you. Thank you for that. Like a beautiful gift to my heart. Well, I have to say, when Leah invited me to participate, she said, just feel into it and see how it's going to go. And I'm like, yes. Okay, but just feel into it. Yes, it's just a yes. I know it's a yes, because this is my greatest passion. It's my greatest joy to show up. And especially women, I would say about 95% of my practice is women, and women who are really coursing down what I would call like the divine feminine path, like kind of an advanced feminine spiritual path. And I know that Leah has this ability to attract very powerful, very cosmic women into her world. So when she asked me, it was just an absolute yes. And I'd like to just play a little game. And the game starts off just by asking questions. So we can just start off easy. Who has a spiritual practice? Okay. Who has an understanding of energy? Energy. Okay. A little bit. Okay. Who has an understanding that thought forms are energy? Okay. Okay. Good. Who has an understanding of limiting belief structure, like in your own mind? You have an understanding of that. Okay. Who here has ever been to therapy? I did a lot of that. All right. And who here, let's just kind of put it out in a different way. Who here is in a relationship? Okay. So a lot of what we're going to work on today can transfer to relationship. Who here has what I would call extra sensory skills, are actually normal sensory skills, where they maybe consider themselves really intuitive, really clairvoyant, able to see things, or clairaudient, able to hear things? Who has that in their practice? Okay. Who wants to develop that aspect of themselves? Okay, good, good. So I can support that as well. Who here has modalities for clearing energy, clearing frequency out of your space? Okay, good, good. So you're feeling empowered for that. All right, very good. All right, ladies. So what I just want to start off with is just a tiny little background about myself. I don't want to bore you with any detail of what I've done or what I've accomplished. I've just been in private practice for 22 years. The way I sit with clients is one-on-one in groups and now Zoom. Before 2020, I didn't do anything really online, but I do actually find that it's fun and that the energy translates and transfers very easily. And a part of my background is that I have a double master's in somatic counseling psychology and then personal counseling psychology. And as I was going down that track, my spiritual practice was so blown open. So I'm clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, a medium at sometimes. Sometimes I channel master teachers, commune with nature. It's just a natural way of being. And I think many of us have this natural way of being. But for myself, it got shut down. As a child, I was able to commune in those ways. And then as I would share it with the adults, they would let me know how I was dreaming, how that wasn't possible, how there's nothing in my bedroom when clearly I saw something move through my bedroom, right? And then so all of that began to close down. And then as I was going through my undergraduate and my master's program, it all began to open back up. And so that's how come I decided it was really important for me not to go down the path of MFT, just given my skill set and who I was, that I needed to hold a different container. And so the container that I hold is understanding quantum physics, because in my own personal life, I wanted to comprehend how could it possibly be so that I was tracking everything that I was tracking. And quantum physics was very supportive in helping me understand multidimensionality, the power of intention, energy vibration, and all of my experience. And so it became a passion. It was a part of my master's program as well. And then I just started gathering tools that supported on a frequency level. So frequency, all thoughts resonate as at a particular frequency, and frequency is just oscillation of current. So for example, has anyone heard of Dr. Emoto's work? Dr. Emoto, oh, he's great, he's great. Okay, so yeah, so yes, so Dr. Emoto's work. So Dr. Emoto, this came out probably in around 2000, and you can find it on YouTube. I think it's EMOTTO, but you can find it. And basically what he did was he measured the power of intention on water molecules and music on water molecules. And then what he was able to capture is he would take pictures of the crystalline structures of the molecule itself and how it would shift with different focused intention or different focused music. So it was just really powerful to see research where somebody could have a physical representation of the thought forms in a crystalline structure of water. So it helps give rise to support and understanding that our beliefs, our frequencies, way we're oscillating in our consciousness, all is measurable. And there are ways now that science is catching up and actually measuring it. And so a big part of my work is coming in to the limiting belief structures and changing people's frequency. Because when we are in our story, let's say a part of our story is, I'll do something maybe lighter. I hope it's nobody's story, but let's say your dad was an alcoholic and you would come home from school and he didn't want to engage with you. Let's say he just locked himself away and he drank and maybe got angry later in the evening or whatever was going on. So to a child, this experience might land in an interpretation or a story. And the story might be, my dad doesn't love me, or he doesn't want anything to do with me, or he's a mean person, or I'm unlovable. Like if I was only X, then he would be able to show up in my world. And all of that is a story. The biggest truth would be that the dad had bad coping skills or was an alcoholic, right? And then the child was the recipient of behavior, right? Which doesn't have to do with lovability or if you have or care or value or anything of that nature. But we believe our stories, and these stories make imprints, and these stories hold energy. These stories are our consciousness. And so today, what I'm going to show you is how completely empowered we actually are to shift our consciousness at any time on a moment's notice. You can also find tools to dissolve currents in your consciousness, so it's no longer affecting you. So the way I playfully talk about it, I use two metaphors and I cross back and forth. So one is that we are a house of consciousness, right? And we construct this house. Often 7 and under, we do most of our construction. And a lot of that experience goes into our unconscious. And our unconscious, let's say, is the basement of our house, the foundation of the house. Often that's where we make pain interpretations. It's where we create limiting beliefs of self, what we think we're capable of, not capable of, right? But as adults, we have a tendency to turn off the light and just pretend that the basement doesn't exist. And what I do is I playfully say, let's turn on the lights, let's go into the basement, let's unpack one box at a time. Let's see what story is in that box. And is that a story that you want to keep? Is that a story that you're in alignment with? Is that a representation of the truth of who you are now? And if it is, great, keep it. Maybe you want to move it to the first floor of your house. If it's not, then we want to get rid of it. Okay. So we will playfully turn on the light, go into the basement. Okay. Another way I talk about it is that we are on a frequency level. Like if you're going to think about your consciousness and the ingredients within your consciousness, that we are like a soup of all of our sum total experiences and what we believe to be true about ourselves based on those sum total experiences. And it makes a soup of a particular flavor, right? So we are completely empowered, and quantum physics dictates this. It is so, there's no other way around it. Our consciousness is so powerful that we can add ingredients to that soup and we can take away ingredients to that soup. And as we all know, when we cook and we do that, the flavor of things is really different. So what I would say is your perception of things will become really different, right? So we just have to know what we're doing. And what we're doing today is I'm going to give you tools to understand how quickly you can shift your consciousness, how insanely powerful we actually are, that we are not stuck. Like, let's say you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh gosh, today, maybe you're in a bad mood, maybe you just had a bad dream. And sometimes we think like, okay, we're stuck with that for the day. Absolutely not. You can shift that within seconds, right? And start aligning with the frequency, the story, the frequency, the oscillation of consciousness that you want to exist in. All right, are we on for this ride? We are? Okay, good. All right, let's buckle up. Let's do this. Okay, so what I'm going to teach you today, it's called the round table of consciousness. This is something that I developed to help people understand that we have different aspects to who we are, okay? Different aspects to who we are. Often we think we're just that voice in our head, and that's us no matter what, but that's an aspect of who we are talking with the microphone internally. So I'm going to teach you how to pass that microphone around to different parts of yourself so you can hear from different parts of yourself. Okay, good. All right, so what I would like you to do, if possible, is get a pen and paper. And if it can be a plain piece of paper, that would be great. If it's lined paper, that's fine too. You will also want to have paper to take notes. So it seems like some of you do have notes. That's great. So let's just take a second to grab your paper, grab your pen. We're going to do a little art project. Not really, but a little bit. Beautiful. All right. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so one thing you're going to learn about me is that life is so serious and challenging sometimes that I am very playful in spiritual practice and in process because I know how empowered we actually are. And so you're going to see my goofy side come out every now and then. So I hope that's okay. All right, so this is what we're going to do. I want you to just draw a circle. Can you see this? So just draw a circle, and then around the circle, I want you to put X's evenly apart. You don't have to look at the names. Let's see, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I did 9, okay? So put a big circle, and then around that circle, put about 9 X's evenly apart. So what this circle represents is your table of consciousness. These are all aspects of you that we're going to invite to your table of consciousness. Basically, you're going to have a board meeting with yourselves. All right. Now we're going to identify the different aspects of self. Okay, so we're going to stick to just a few main archetypes as woman, what we might experience. Now, I share this with my girlfriend, Michelle. Oh my gosh, I love her. She came up with like 40 aspects of self. And, you know, it was like the one who loves art and like scooter girl in San Francisco and mermaid girl, and she's in the ocean. And it was just beautiful and delightful. And the work can be done with less than that. So I would say don't go over like 10, 15 aspects of self, but we're going to start identifying some, okay? Become comfortable and familiar. All right, so this is what I identified, and go ahead and at one of the X's, put daughter, because we're all a daughter. Or however you identify, so I just want to add that. I just put it next to the X. All right, so daughter. The next is friend, right? So we all have had a friend in our life or more. The next I put was businesswoman, that part of you that goes to work, that part of you that may run your own business, that part of you that might be thinking about doing something, okay? And then next to another X, I put the inner critic. I'm sure we all have her. And then the next X, I put partner. And then this may apply for some, it may not apply to others. An X, I put mom, if anyone has given birth or adopted or stepmoms or anything of that nature. And another X, I put sibling. Okay. In another chair, I put my spiritual self or my personal growth self, that part of me that is curious and wants to learn and grow. Okay. Very good. And then there might be a blank chair left that you can create your own. Okay. All right. So we're basically going to play a game. And in this game of understanding your own consciousness, there are going to be basically 3 parts to it. One is to understand that embodied presence, which is where we're headed. It's about understanding that you are more than the sum of your parts. So we've just identified some parts. okay? But who you truly are, is that life force that animates all of those parts, right? So we are our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our spiritual body, and I would add to that our subatomic field in understanding quantum physics, and our soul body. So we're very complex beings. We have all these different aspects to us. But the truth of who we are is that we are greater than just the sum of our parts. Okay, but we're going to deepen into the parts. The second thing to understand with this game is to recognize that there's a observing self. This is just an innate part of us that can observe who is talking at the table right now, who has the microphone at the table right now. The observing self sometimes can come in for support. See an example. Oh, I love this example. Who has ever been in a relationship and it starts to get a little scratchy in conversation? No one? Oh, come on. Where it's like you're starting to butt heads. Who's been in a relationship where all of a sudden you're now fighting and you're not really present and you're starting to like say things that maybe aren't the nicest, right? And there's a part of you that's aware, like, oh, that wasn't very nice, right? So who's ever been in this situation where now you're so pissed off at whatever's going on, you're so triggered, you're in your head and you're trying to think of a zinger for the other person, or you felt hurt and now you're like, look, mister, or whoever, and you're going to think of that zinger and you're going to think back, and you hear this voice come in that says, oh, no, don't say that. That's not going to go very well, right? That's your observing self coming in, letting you know, right? But sometimes we're so triggered, we just say it anyway, and it doesn't go well. And we're like, why didn't I listen to myself? Because it might be days of cleanup or weeks of cleanup afterwards, right? Your observing self is an empowering part of you that is overseeing the situation. Now, some people say, well, is that my spiritual self? And I would say, if you want to equate it to that, that is fine, right? That is a higher part of you coming in to observe, okay? So often we are living our lives out. So another way of maybe holding this conceptually would be like, let's say your observing self was on a mountaintop, or your evolved self is on a mountaintop, your soul self, and you're looking down into like a village, okay? That's a particular vantage point. And in the village, we might be more in our personality, interacting with people, talking to people, moving through our day. So the observing self is on the mountaintop looking down with a different overview of the situation. And then we're also living into the experience simultaneously. Both exist, okay? But no one really teaches us that both exist. So our job is to strengthen our observing self so we can have an understanding of our experience, who's talking at the round table, and then roll up our sleeves and change our frequency. Okay, great. The third thing is that all aspects of self, you get to choose. Do I like this? Do I not like this? If we identify something in an aspect of self and it's super joyous and playful, right, then you're going to want to keep that frequency. If we identify something in an aspect of self and there's a lot of sorrow or shame, we're going to want to get in there and excavate that, right? Get into the basement or exit that ingredient out of your soup so things can begin to shift for you, okay? All right, let's do this. Let's have fun. Now, warning, I don't know you all intimately, so as we move from one aspect to the other, I want you to trust that you can let go of everything from that aspect. We do not need to linger in a pain body. We do not need to linger in a location that feels hurtful to you. You may identify some hurt coming up, no problem. As we pass the microphone to the next, I want you to really trust that you can let it all go and listen to the next aspect of you. Does that make sense? Okay. And if anyone gets too triggered in this exercise, when we're done, we're going to do a guided meditation. If there's still activation after that, then I invite you to call me personally right away after our Zoom, and then I'll walk it all the way through with you. What you'll learn about me over time, if we ever meet again, is I never leave things undone. I always like to leave things wrapped up with a bow so you feel your own good, loving heart. And so I will not leave anyone's vulnerability exposed, right? Like a raw nerve, okay? Okay, so we're gonna start working the round table, okay, in self-conference. So let's go ahead and close our eyes. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to identify the chair that is daughter. This is you as daughter. This is you and your household. These are your beliefs. These are your daughter experiences. And you're going to close your eyes and you're going to give the inner microphone to that part of you that is daughter. We're going to invite that story forward. We're going to invite that aspect of self all the way forward. This is what it's like as daughter. And just allow yourself to sense into that world. This is how you show up as daughter. This is who you know yourself to be as daughter. All of this aspect of you gets to have the microphone now. You might notice shifts in your body. Shifts in the way you're sitting. Different emotional currents. Different storylines. This is you as daughter. Giving her the microphone. Letting her speak. Beautiful. Please take a nice deep breath. We're still with daughter, but I want you to go ahead and open your eyes. And I want you to write down, what does daughter feel like? Does she feel taken care of, loved, hurt, sad, angry, joyful? What are her characteristics? What is she all about? And in particular, I want you to capture some of the emotional currents and possibly some of the storyline, you as daughter. And then whenever you feel finished with that, we're going to open up and we're going to share just a little bit, whatever feels comfortable with you. Okay. Now, one thing I do in my groups is I have what's called the code of love. And the code of love means that we honor everybody's process. We recognize that we are a mirror reflection to one another. So if we find ourselves in judgment, that it is us judging ourselves. That we honor sharing as deeply sacred and important for everybody's healing and growth. Oh, the little one. And that there is no gossiping or talking about what happens here is sacred. It's not to be talked about with partners or friends in people's sharing of their experience. Now, if you relate to something personally, you're like, wow, this really brought up some good stuff for me. That's fine. That's fine. But we don't want to share anybody's personal experience with anybody else. It's to be held as sacred. So I just want to identify that here. You seem like a lovely group of people, and I just want it to feel really safe and really nurturing to share. And only share what feels comfortable. So who would like to speak into their aspect of self as daughter? What came up for you? All right, so let's let go of daughter. We're done with daughter for now, okay? Everybody's captured daughter. And so this is what I want you to do. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to say goodbye to this daughter aspect. And I want you to hold in your consciousness every single part of me that relates to daughter, this daughter aspect. I choose to disconnect from it right now. I let it all go. Every single part of me is daughter. I let it all go. And a nice visual for that would be, imagine that you're in a wetsuit and you unzip the wetsuit and you're just peeling it off. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy, but you're just peeling off this whole aspect that is daughter. You're choosing to let it go. Every single part of you is letting go of daughter right now. Every single part of you chooses to let go of daughter right now. Saying goodbye to her for now. Letting her go. Every single part of her, just letting her go. Taking off that wetsuit, peeling it off where it may be sticky. And we're going to pass the microphone. We're going to pass the microphone to that part of you that is a friend. This is you as a friend. This is how you call your friends. This is how you relate to your friends. This is how you show up with your friends. This is the heart connection you have with your friends. We're going to pass the microphone to the part of you that is friend and really invite in the friend. This is who you are. You might think of certain friends. You might review your whole life. However you go about it is just fine. You're bringing forward that part of you that is friend. This is me as friend. This is how I show up as friend. This is what I like to do as a friend. Just really sit in friend. And let the friend part of you have the inner microphone. Let the friend part of you start talking to you. Sharing emotions, sharing beliefs, story. This is you as friend. Beautiful. Now that friend has the microphone, go ahead and take notes. What are you like as a friend? Capture some of the belief, capture the storyline, capture the emotions. All right. All right. Bringing ourselves back to here. And now, let me ask you this. Did friend feel different than daughter? Everyone's shaking their head. Yep. Definitely felt different. What I want to point out to you is that we shifted in about 15 seconds from daughter to friend, and that everyone who was shaking their head yes could feel the difference, that it felt different than the other aspect of self. So it's incredibly important to recognize who has the inner microphone, who's actually talking in any given moment, right? If you're having a business meeting, you don't want your daughter aspect in there with a microphone talking to everybody, right? You want a more empowered aspect if your daughter aspect needs some work, right? However, if your boss is similar to your mom, guess who might show up, right? So it's up to you to adjust and go, nope, I'm businesswoman and I'm going to bring all of my businesswoman attributes, or I'm going to bring all of my friend attributes into this moment because it's a more empowered self. And your consciousness will shift that fast. Good. All right. So let's move on to the next, shall we? Let's say goodbye to friend. And we're going to let go of her. All right. So we're letting go of that aspect of friend, all that she holds, the relationships, the emotional currents, just letting go of her. Again, peeling off that wetsuit of consciousness, of energy, just letting this aspect go, thanking her for showing up, thanking her for speaking into the microphone. We're just letting her go now. Then we're going to go maybe to a little more challenged place. And we're going to invite forward the inner critic. This is that part of you that likes to criticize you. This is that part of you that as you're in the middle of a project or doing something may come in with a critical voice. We want to invite the inner critic forward, knowing that she's in our basement. And we're going to give her permission to talk into the microphone. We're going to say, okay, you get to speak into the microphone, and I'm going to listen to you. Ultimately, what we want to do is turn the inner critic into the inner critique, right? Sometimes critiquing can be a positive reflection into growth, but we don't want this negative heavy all the time. But for now, we'll give her the microphone. What is she all about? What does she have to say? What are her emotions? And let's take note on all of that. Let's take note on everything. What's her attitude like? What does she like to jump on you for? Hmm. All right. These currents are just a story, right? And she picked this up from somewhere along the way, right? And what happens with inner critic is sometimes she has the microphone most often in our mind, and then we'll couple her with another aspect of self. So like inner critic as businesswoman, inner critic as daughter, right? And we can really be insanely harsh on ourselves when those aspects are talking at the same time, right? Not only is it hurtful to self, but it also generates a current in consciousness. It becomes a part of the lens that we view ourselves and the world through. And according to quantum physics, if you're holding a particular state in consciousness, then unfortunately, we get more of that consciousness. So it can then get reflected through friendships, through family, through people that we're dating, because we are cultivating this field within our field, and then we draw it towards us, right? Now, this has really pissed me off with the universe, because there's a part of me that says, gosh, it's so hard to, break out of the inner critic, to break out of these negative patterns of self. And then here we are in it and amplifying it at the same time, which makes it even more challenging to get out of, right? But the good news is, once you understand that it is just a frequency, that is all it is, that is wrapped around an imprinted story. And these imprinted stories, we look for support, right? And the way we look for support is, yep, see, my boyfriend, he told me that I wasn't worthy of love, right? Support for the belief system, right? And the more that we look for support, then the more we amplify these currents, right? So I'm here to tell you all of this is just a story. And it's our job to roll up our sleeves, get in there, and find these pieces that are alive inside of us. And to your inner critic, right, I just want to acknowledge how painful it is for her, right? That she is such a negative Nelly. I can't believe I just said that. It's something my grandma would say. That she's just in there, right, going amok. Right? Like she doesn't get to rule your world. We're not going to empower her that way. But thus far, she's been kind of running unconsciously in the field as the inner critic. And then we think like, oh, that's just my voice. It's just who I am, right? When really it's not who you are. She just has the microphone. Like I could look at my blouse and go, okay, I don't like this blouse. It's all right. That's a critique of my blouse. Right? If it's my critic of like, oh God, look at my, what's going on, and I'm bashing myself and I'm not being kind to myself, that's the critic. And then she needs support, right? The critic is in pain, right? And it does not feel good, as the critic to be in pain. She comes alive as the critique, right? Because she does have things that she wants to participate in, even like public speaking. Like when I started public speaking skills, man, my critic was so hard, right? And then ultimately it became a critique, right? And I'm like, okay, so when I'm in a room full of 10 women, I don't have to broadcast my voice so loud, like if I'm in a room of 80 without a microphone, right? I need to hear that critique, right? Because I want to create a different environment, right? So that's what we want to swing her into, moving away from some of the density, the negative aspects into the more positive, playful. The inner critic has kept you somewhat small, right? Without your fullest expression in the world. And it's so important for us to give ourselves permission to just be who we are and be in our fullest expression in the world. And it may be, tending to a garden. It may be, creating a TV show. It doesn't matter. Just whomever we are, as we're liberated to be the truth of who we are. That's what we want to be, right? Right. I'm sure we've all heard Marianne Williamson's poem, "Who Are We to Be, Fabulous?" And I don't remember it by heart, but I think we've all heard that a few times. And it's basically, it's just by being us, by our birthright, right? We get to be the fullness of who we really are. And that's a part of what I love to really show people is like, we're not stuck in these old patterns. We are empowered to shift these patterns, to construct a new perspective, which creates new frequency, new oscillation in our field of consciousness, which creates new life experience. And it moves really fast once we know how to play the game. All right, ladies. Well, we're going to let go of the inner critic because she hasn't become the critique yet. So we want to let her go. And then we're going to move into our personal growth, spiritual aspect of self. And we're going to sit there for a minute. So let's thank our inner critic and let her go, all aspects of who she thinks she is. Just peeling off that wetsuit, any part that might be sticky, any emotional current, just letting it go. She has zero permission to be here now. Just letting all of that current go, holding that very clear intention, saying goodbye to the inner critic, all that she holds, all the consciousness that she's taken up in your space. Goodbye. And we're now going to pass the microphone over to your spiritual self, that part of you that's interested in your soul's growth, that part of you that's signed up for Leah's course, that part of you that gets inspired, inviting in your spiritual self, your personal growth self, all that she is. We say yes to our spiritual selves right now, just inviting her in, all of that life force, all of that consciousness. And just sense into her. What does she feel like? What is she like? This is your spiritual self taking the microphone. What's the tone of her voice? How does she talk to you? And just slowly allow her to come forward. Understanding her. This is your inner spiritual self taking up the microphone. Beautiful. And just capture some of her. What is she like? Okay. Now, did your spiritual self feel different than your inner critic? Yeah. I know it's a silly question, but I want you to see it. I want you to see it. Mm-hmm. Good. So again, you did that in about 15 seconds. We let go of the inner critic. We invited the spiritual self forward. She took over the microphone. She started talking to you. Okay. So this was a very quick example of how we can shift our consciousness. So let me just ask you this question. Who should have your microphone most often? Your spirit. That's right. Because she feels good. And she knows what's going on, right? Okay. Now, we don't want to just live there if these other aspects have personal growth qualities to them, right? So who do you want to join in the conversation as you talk to daughter, as you talk to inner critic? Your spiritual self, right? Why should the inner critic go amok in her voice, in her nastiness, rule your day, rule your week, rule your business project, rule whatever it is you're working on, when your spiritual self is right there that can guide you in a more compassionate way? So level 2 to this would be that this is a roundtable self-conference that two people, two aspects of you can actually have the microphone at the same time. So when you find that you are being incredibly harsh on yourself, your observing self might say, hey, 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 look who's out to play. The inner critic is going amok and she's joined up with daughter and she's joined up with friend and there's a whole quagmire happening here. You know, we need to invite in the spiritual self. We need to have this perspective. We need to listen to her, hear from her. What would be supportive for this situation, right? Where's the point of entry? And your spiritual self will tell you, okay? She's wise, she's warrior, she has wisdom, she has grace, she has light, okay? When you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you're thinking about maybe your parents, or if you have a sibling and you're active in something, just invite in your spiritual self to join in that process, okay? Now, it's really important to recognize that there may be some work to do. Who's scared of doing personal growth work? None of us, because we're here in Leah's workshop, right? We have a desire to learn and grow, right? So the daughter self might need some attention. Okay, I saw a few of you, I asked you if you had modalities or ways of clearing frequency. Identify it and do it. I also have ways of clearing frequency. If people want to work, you know, one-on-one, no problem. If you have a way of doing it, get to it right away, right? Start clearing frequency so your consciousness shifts. Okay, now the good news is you can clear frequency and you can add frequency. So energy follows intention all the time. There's no other way. This is quantum physics. Let's say you recognize, wow, I'm going to go very basic here, but profound and powerful. Let's say you recognize, wow, I've been really harsh on myself and I'm not experiencing any self-love right now. I realize I need to draw this frequency towards me, self-love, right? So you can do that a variety of ways. You can do it through guided meditation. You can do it through holding the intention. I open to self-love. I say yes to self-love right now. I pulse with self-love. Self-love is just a part of who I am, right? Every time you say something like that, you're shifting your vibrational state. Back to Dr. Emoto's work, where he was able to identify water at a crystalline level, how it resonates with words. So words just aren't words. Words are frequency. And then what we tell ourselves is incredibly important. So you can create a list of frequencies that you want to amplify in your field. Self-love, trust, grace, tranquility, happiness, right? And start adding these frequencies into your consciousness. And you can do that through your spiritual self. Okay. Good. So this, what I'm going to bring through now is embodied presence. So I'm going to do a guided meditation for you where you get to be fully present, that you are bigger than the sum of your parts. Through this guided meditation, you're going to sense into your own beingness, and you're going to see how easy it is to amplify your field. So we're going to amplify your field and the frequency of embodied presence. Okay. This will be very helpful in day-to-day activities, dealing with this election, dealing with everything that we're moving through right now, how to maintain presence as you're rolling through. So I'm going to imprint this with you through this guided meditation. All you have to do is say yes to it. Okay. And then you'll be in the feeling of it. So let's go ahead and close our eyes, knowing that you are completely safe, that you are completely held in this moment. And as you close your eyes, you can just follow your breath. And as you inhale, you can think, I am. And as you exhale, you can think, relaxing. I am relaxing. I am relaxing. And with each and every breath, you simply find that you're relaxing even more. And here you can simply invite that part of you forward, that part of you that knows how to move through this process with great ease. Opening to your embodied presence is easy. It's natural. And here you can give yourself permission to be as creative as you need to be. And I want you to begin to imagine now that there's a beautiful beam of white light, and this white light descends down to your head, down to your brain, and it slowly begins to work its way through your brain. And this white light simply begins to absorb and extract any currents in consciousness that you feel complete with, anything that might obstruct you to your own embodied presence, just holding the intention. I just let it go. Letting go of stress, anxieties, into that white light now. And then allow that white light to slowly work its way down the base of your neck, into your spinal column, working its way down the spinal column now. And that white light simply absorbs, extracts any currents there that you're willing to release, anything that has the potential to obstruct you from your own embodied presence. And you're just letting it go now. The whole central nervous system continues to fill with this white light. All the way down to the tip of your tailbone. And then imagine that the beam of white light moves directly into your right eye, filling your right eye now. Cleansing, releasing. then imagine another beam of white light moves directly into the left eye. So both eyes are now filling with this light, absorbing, extracting. And as that continues, you can imagine that this white light moves deep into your right ear. Deep into your left ear. And just allow this white light to do all the work. Its job is to absorb and extract any currents in consciousness that you're ready to release. Anything that could obstruct you from your own embodied presence, just letting it all go into that light for transmutation. And then imagine this white light moving up into your sense of smell. The right nostril, the left nostril. And imagine that white light touching the tip of your tongue and slowly rolling across your tongue, activating each and every taste bud. And again, the light does all the work, absorbing, extracting, transmuting, anything that you're ready to release. And then imagine this white light filling your throat center now. More and more white light fills the throat center. And we're moving through all of the senses because that's how we perceive our life experience. And if you feel the desire to fill your physical body with white light, you can. Almost like an inner waterfall of light flooding in through the top of your head, through your face, down your arms, through your chest, through all of the organs and down the legs. And just letting this light shoot out your fingertips and your toes. Just letting it flow. And again, allowing it to do the work for you. And as all of that continues, we're going to bring our awareness back to the senses, focusing on your right eye. And as you focus on your right eye now, you can simply repeat the following in your own inner world. I awaken to the life force that is my embodied presence. I say yes to embodied presence. I say yes to this consciousness. More and more of my embodied presence arrives because I choose it and I allow it. Embodied presence is simply who I am. I say yes to my own embodied presence. I say yes to embodied presence within my inner world of vision, as well as the outer. And I say yes to embodied presence in this here and now, and all timelines, all dimensional spaces. I give myself permission to say yes to embodied presence. More and more embodied presence arrives. I choose it. I allow embodied presence to arrive. I allow embodied presence to simply be a part of my consciousness now. And as that continues, you bring your awareness to your left eye. I awaken I choose and I allow embodied presence. More and more embodied presence arrives. I say yes to this consciousness that is my embodied presence. Embodied presence is simply more of the truth of who I am. And I'm choosing it, and I'm allowing it to express through me as me. And as that continues, you can bring your awareness to your right ear. I allow the frequency of embodied presence to fill my right ear. I say yes to this consciousness right now. More of my embodied presence arrives. I choose, I allow my embodied presence. My inner world of hearing, my outer world of hearing, all timelines, all dimensions, fills with embodied presence. I declare it so. And then bringing your awareness to your left ear. Again, just holding clear intention. I awaken, I remember, and I receive the consciousness that is embodied presence. I choose it. I allow it. My embodied presence arrives. It's natural. It's easy. I am embodied presence. I am embodied presence. More and more embodied presence arrives. It's simply a part of who I am. I say yes to this consciousness. My right nostril, my left nostril fills with the frequency of embodied presence. I choose it. I allow it. More and more embodied presence arrives. I say yes. And as that continues, you can bring your awareness to your sense of taste. I awaken, I remember, and I receive embodied presence deep into my sense of taste. More and more embodied presence arrives. It's natural. It's easy. More and more embodied presence arrives. I say yes to my embodied presence. I say yes to my embodied presence. I say yes to embodied presence in this here and now and throughout all timelines, all dimensions. It's natural and easy to receive embodied presence. I allow my embodied presence to exist within me, to express through me. And then just bringing your awareness to your throat center. And here too, I awaken, I choose, and I allow the frequency of embodied presence to express through me as me. I say yes to embodied presence. More and more embodied presence arrives. More and more embodied presence arrives. I am embodied presence. I am embodied presence. And from this place of knowing and receiving, awakening and allowing embodied presence, you can simply bring yourself back to this very present moment with your embodied presence fully expressed. And then bringing all of who you are into this here and now. Feeling and sensing into your own embodied presence. Slowly wiggling your fingers and your toes. Feeling that embodied presence coming alive in your physical form. And then just allowing yourself to arrive back into this here and now. And we'll wait for everybody to come on back. Beautiful. Good. All right. So who feels different than before the meditation? Okay. So with this guided meditation, what I wanted to show you was it was probably about 15 to 20 minutes long. I didn't do an initiation. I didn't do sacred chant. I didn't use my modalities for clearing. All we were doing is using your own system, right, to call on your embodied presence. And we slowed down. We paid attention to our senses, and we allowed it to arrive just by your focused intention. And you're feeling different, right? And that is truly the most empowering position you can possibly be in your consciousness, is to recognize that you are actually steering the ship, that you're more empowered than you can possibly imagine to shift your consciousness. So we did it by passing the microphone, right, to different parts of self. We understand that our spiritual selves feel the best, and our spiritual self should accompany other aspects if they're going amok or bringing us down so we can learn and grow. And with this guided meditation, with focused intention, You shifted your whole field of consciousness into a more present state. Okay. Isn't that good to know? We can do that at any time. Right? I call it stinking thinking. When we go down the rabbit hole of stinking thinking, oh my gosh, especially with the critic coupled with pain body stuff, we could get lost for a really long time and just think that's our reality. And it's only a tiny aspect, right? This is the bigger truth. Your embodied presence is the bigger truth. Your spiritual expression is your biggest truth. And everything else is a story, right? That we're empowered to shift at any time. Okay, so what I want to share with you, I talked to Leah about this because she was excited about a body of work that has begun to come through. And so, as I've mentioned, I've been in private practice for about 22 years. I do a lot of communing, a lot of channeling. And what I did years ago is I started to bring ladies down to Tulum, Mexico for retreat. And I started opening up to a goddess down there called Ishel, who is a very cosmic being. And I've been working with her very deeply. And last October, I was up in Mount Shasta and I did a huge prayer to bring through a new modality that's very effective and efficient for people to evolve along their path. And talk about feeling unworthy. I was like, who am I to ask for a new modality? That's crazy. But I did, and I put it out there. And I was working with a client, and just beautiful, beautiful soul. And Ishel came in during that call, and she said, do this, 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 and then do this, this, this. And I was like, okay, I mentioned to my client, I'm communing right now. Do you want to hear this? Do you want to work it through? And she said, yes. The whole modality just did a quick download in that moment with this client. So we were able to capture it, write it down. It's incredibly simple. And then I started backing out of it because my inner critic kind of came out to play. Again, like, who are you to bring through a new modality? And I was quickly course corrected through guidance. And the guidance said, all modalities come through people. All modalities show up through people, whether it be tapping or, an ancient teaching of Ayurvedic or, that somewhere along the way, it came through a human being. So I was like, oh, okay. Like somehow that adjusted me in that. And I started sharing it with ladies in my divinity circle, which if you ever want to understand a divinity circle or connect in with that, you can reach out to me. It's where we do a lot of this work, but deep dive, more initiations and work and playfulness, lots of sisterhood, where we just meet once a month now in video call. But I shared it with everybody, and they had a strong willingness to put it into play. And I said, I need to hear the feedback. I need to hear all the feedback from you because I need to build more confidence before I take this out to the world at large. And I started getting amazing feedback. And one of the stories that was truly touching was a woman in her late 30s who has been on a personal growth path for a really long time, used this modality to work her round table with all the different emotional currents that were a part of her eating disorder of bulimia. I have permission to talk about this, by the way. And she hadn't been actively expressed in her bulimia for about 8 years, but before that, it had been about 10 years. But for 8 years, she was struggling in the fight with it, right? Internally, every meal, everything was a thing for her. So I gave her this modality and I said, well, just try it. Like, I don't know how it works because I know how it functions, but I don't know if it will work on that because this is all new to me. And sure enough, within 1 month, from one session to the next, she wrote down every emotional current that was wrapped around her eating disorder, used the modality on that, and expressed to me that she no longer has it inside of her system at all. And as a matter of fact, looks back on it and is almost even startled or confused that it was ever even a part of her. And so there was something about her story that gave me more confidence in sharing it with newer people, kind of like outside of my community. So I wanted to invite you ladies, if you want to learn this modality, it would just be a one-time Zoom call. Last night before I was going to bed, I was like, am I gonna really do this? And it was like, yep, you are, because you have to start breathing out. So I'm inviting you into a Zoom. I was thinking it would just be $98 for the day. It might be more like 3 hours, not a full day, like 3 to 4 hours. We'll go at a pace that feels good to each person. And if anyone wants to do one-on-one work, here I am. Just reach out. I think you have my information. My private sessions are 2 hours. As of now, we're doing them over the phone. I have a sliding scale to accommodate all different financial backgrounds and economic needs, so don't worry about that. And if you're just inspired, reach out. The work is more important. Our shift in consciousness is what is most important. That's how we will be evolving along through all of these transitory times right now. So the more we evolve, shift our field, one, the happier we become, but two, it then parlays into the collective field. And so we get to participate in the collective evolution as well. Beautiful ladies. Well, thank you so much for letting me participate in your lives. And it was such a treat meeting each and every one of you and seeing your faces. Thank you so much for letting me participate.